Oh, I see Myra. Hi. Is she coming on the, it's Jane. Is she coming on the call? The advisory committee? Okay, all right. We're going to start then. All right. So whenever you're ready, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I'm waiting for Joey. Joey, we good?
Jim, we are good.
Okay. Everyone, welcome to the ALCOSAN Advisory Committee meeting of June. This meeting is being taped. Stevie, you want to do a roll call, please?
Stevie, you're muted. You need to unmute yourself. I can see your lips moving, but I can't hear you.
There we go.
There.
Nick Bianchi. Lisa Werder Brown.
Present.
Kinsey Casey.
Present.
Darla Cravata. Lloyd Cunningham. Dan DeMarco. Patricia DeMarco. Tina Doucet.
Here.
Ariam Ford Graver. Nick Resock. Mark Heckman.
Here.
Rebecca Kiernan. Ken Lasada.
Ken Lasota here.
Ruth Ann Ulmer. Stanley Paps. Will Pickering.
Present.
Mary Ellen Ramage.
Here, thank you.
Tim Rogers.
I'm here, thanks.
Mark Samponia.
Here.
Kathy Sapp.
Present.
Danielle Vetruska.
Here.
Max Unker.
Here.
I have 9. I'm sorry, 10. Mr. Solicitor.
Well, yes, with our full contingent of 21, we need 11 to have a quorum. However, we do have a vacancy, and I don't think it's been filled for Mr. Grimm. And I believe we never got a third appointee from one of the watersheds. So we're really down to 19 seating members. So in my opinion, for the 2 action items we have here for the approval of the minutes, we can consider that we do have a quorum based on those 2 vacant positions.
Thank you, Max. And the plain language is it's close enough for government work, so we have enough people here to go. I'm impressed how everybody mutes and unmutes, so thank you all very much. So the first item before us is the approval of the minutes of April 2021. We'll do them separately. Be kind enough to make a motion giving us your name so we can put that into the record. Your pleasure.
Danielle,
I make a motion that we approve the minutes from April 27th, and this is Tina Doucet.
I second the motion, and this is Lisa Werder Brown.
Tina and Lisa, thank you. We have a motion. All in favor, give your consent by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it, and so ordered. Let's do again the minutes of May 2021. Lisa and Tina, would you be kind enough to do that again?
I make a motion that we approve the minutes from, April 21st? And
This one is May.
May.
I'm sorry, May.
Thank you, Tina.
I second the motion, but with the qualifier that there are some typos that need to be fixed.
Yeah.
They're minor.
Okay.
that's on me.
Okay.
Stevie and Jeannie, we can take care of that. Any
Yes.
further question on the motion? Further question being called. In favor, give your consent by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it, so ordered. Next item is an update on state legislation from Chuck Colling, Senior Principal Government Relations for Buchanan Ingersoll. Chuck, long time since I've seen you.
Good seeing you.
Good seeing you. Go ahead. The floor is yours.
Jeannie, you want to kick it off or do you want me?
Sure. And I sent you all a fact sheet about this piece of legislation along with the ALCOSAN letter too, that you may use as a sample if you wish, along with the senators' addresses and emails to contact them. Basically, this bill, SB 597, I called it the so-called Water Quality Accountability Act, went into committee with a totally different verbiage, and they did what's called a gut and replace, where they just took the original bill and replaced everything. This is a bill that would put everybody who has any water or sewage infrastructure in their municipality, authority, etc., at risk of having to be under the legal oversight of the Pennsylvania Public Utility Commission, and would require extensive and conflicting system changes. This bill would increase rates without increasing any benefit to the ratepayer. The legislation is opposed by just about every organization we all belong to. It is supported by Aqua America and Pennsylvania American Water, both of which have been reaching out to municipalities and authorities to buy their systems. This appears to be a bill that would make it more expensive for municipalities and authorities that don't want their systems to go private. It's specific. It seems to be specifically aimed at publicly owned water and wastewater facilities. Chuck, I'm going to turn it over to you so you can tell us what happened at the committee conversation since then and where you think it might be moving.
Sure, I'll be glad to tell you that. The bill was reported from committee and I guess 2 weeks ago on May 20, maybe longer, 25th, the Consumer Protection and Professional Licensure Committee. There was not a unanimous vote at all. And the bill was introduced by Senator Pat Stefano from Somerset. And he had spent some time on the water authority out there. And he had come up with this suggestion, this idea. And I let him know prior to the committee meeting that at least ALCOSAN, as well as municipalities across Allegheny County, had some concerns about it. They still called the bill up before the committee, and it was reported out, but not a unanimous vote. And so there are some significant concerns. The bill, as I mentioned, was reported out on May 25th. It still remains on the Senate calendar. It was on the Senate calendar today and was marked over, which means it's not going to be considered. I had a conversation. I had 2 follow-up meetings with Senator Stefano about it, expressing the concerns of ALCOSAN. Obviously, as Jeannie said, letters of opposition have been sent to the Allegheny County State Senate delegation, Senator Costa, Fontana, Brewster, Williams, and Devlin Robinson, and letting them know that we oppose the legislation. My conversations with Senator Stefano is that they were going to hold the legislation because even some members of his Republican caucus have expressed concern about the legislation. Right now, the legislation is on hold. Now, having said that, the legislature will probably be in session maybe 2 more weeks because they want to finish the budget and probably leave by June 25th, and we'll be gone for the summer. I think the intention at this point is for Senator Stefano to meet with some of the groups and see if they can work out some sort of compromise. I know when I spoke with him, he was very upset with the Pennsylvania Municipal Authorities Organization because he believed he had been negotiating with them in good faith. And then the Friday before the bill was actually considered, they sent a letter in opposition to it, which is the reason, according to him, that they scheduled the bill for consideration by the Consumer Protection and Professional Licensure Committee. So at this point, the bill is somewhat on hold. But having said that, you can't be assured of that it's going to be that way forever. For example, I believe the vote was 12-1 on committee, but none of the Allegheny County members are on that committee. The only negative vote was Senator Kane, a freshman senator from the Southeast. So at this point, I think we should continue to ratchet up our pressure, not only on our senators, but specifically engaging with Senator Stefano to request a meeting in order to just have a conversation about the legislation and let him know the negative impact it could have on ALCOSAN as well as water and sewer authorities across the county, of course, across the state. So that's where it is right now. I checked it again today. It is not scheduled to move today, still on the calendar. So that's my latest information. Senator Stefano, police at this point plans on holding the bill to have further negotiations. I'll answer any questions you may have.
Chuck and Jeannie, thank you for that description. I was involved, as many of you know, I'm chairman of the Hampton-Shaler Water Authority. We see this as an attempt by private corporate entities to take over water and sewer authorities and to take it from the benefit of the ratepayers to the benefit of corporate America. So we reached out to Senator Williams immediately, and she is on board with opposing the legislation. And she sees it for what it is. It's, you know, it's just major corporations trying to force us into a PUC requirement. If those of us who are smaller entities, and I would consider ALCOSAN to be a pretty large entity, but small enough to be affected negatively, there's no benefit to the ratepayers, especially to those of us who are managing small water sewer operations. This is just going to be more regulations trying to control what we're already doing. It's particularly offensive with ALCOSAN's situation. We're under an EPA consent decree. We're under a DEP review. The last thing we need is another bureaucratic agency telling us how to process wastewater. So I would encourage all my colleagues to make that effort to contact their senators and let them know, you know, you're not doing your ratepayers a favor here. If there was a troubled agency out there, and we face this all the time, when there's a problem in a particular location, the legislature tends to broad brush some legislation to fix a small problem, which affects all of us in a large way. So this is a piece of legislation we really want to make an effort to try to stop. So with all due respect, if you could reach out and talk to your senator, we did already. We did that a month ago when we saw it on the original type that the legislation was. This is just a pure attempt to force us under PUC. So I would encourage all of us to do what Chuck is recommending and at least contact your senator if you're not willing to write the letter.
And of course, a key senator, not from Allegheny County, but the majority leader from the Senate, as you mentioned, Senator Kim Ward from Westmoreland County. She is a key player in this. She determines which bills will be considered. So any communication with Senator Ward would be, in addition to our senators, obviously, would be great. And if we can encourage people from across the state to get in touch with their senators. That's where things stand. So I'll be glad to answer any questions, additional questions you may have.
This is Lisa Brown. I have a question. Is this something that we would want our municipalities to send letters as well?
I would say so. That would be my thought. Yes.
Okay.
And that's one of the reasons I wanted to share all this information with the advisory committee, because so many of you are in contact with your members of your basin. It would be a very quick way for you to, I gave you all the information, you just need to forward it because I think the municipalities really do need to know. And I'm going to also be spreading the word about this at ALON and obviously in our municipal connections that's coming up in a whole lot of different ways. But this is one where we have to, I believe, pull out all the stops and get everybody talking about this to their senators to start with. The fact that we didn't have a whole lot of notice that this was going to happen, that this bill was even going around, and the fact that they got it in replace so that everybody who had gone on record ahead of time as being opposed to it then had to see what was the new language and would they still be opposed. So it was a way to confuse. I think it confused the issue, but also the bill actually got worse from our point of view.
And Lisa, to your point, that is a good tack to take. We got to go from the bottom up, from the ratepayer. There's no benefit in this legislation to the ratepayer. So if the senators can see that the ratepayers are going to be injured and that there's some price to pay for injuring the ratepayers, I think that's the advantage of this. So if the individual municipalities can speak to it, in the form of protecting its ratepayers from excessive regulation. I think that's the benefit.
Yeah, and again, as Gene said, by the way, the municipalities are critically important. I know there's an ALOM meeting coming up at Seven Springs, right, Jeannie? Did you say that?
Yes.
I know typically they have their meeting in April, but this year they've made it to Seven Springs. Now that will be after probably the legislature recesses, I believe, for the summer, but close to around that.
It's this
Assuming the bill's
Thursday,
not
yeah.
moving, that's another way to reinforce and encourage their opposition, contact their local legislators.
ALOM is in 2 days, and typically on Saturday, members of the legislature show up, so we may have access to a senator or two up there we can talk.
That's a great opportunity.
Mhm.
Any other questions or comments?
Tim, I'm going to share this from the Stormwater Committee at the North Hills COG through the Council of Governments too,
Mhm.
Mhm. Great idea.
I'll do
Thank you.
that.
Great,
when I get off.
good. Hearing nothing else, we'll move to a general discussion on the advisory committee work. I would mention that I met with the chairman of the ALCOSAN board this morning, Corey O'Connor in Shadyside. Ruth Ann had raised at our last meeting a concern of when we are going to begin advising the board. And I gave that some thought for the month, and there's a couple, and Corey and I had discussed that, Mr. O'Connor and I discussed that. And the board, he tells me, is looking for some advice relative to trunk main transfer. How do we continue to promote that? And actually is asking that we, the advisory committee, participate in active support of the trunk main transfer. The other thing that the board is looking for is also advice on the GROW program. And the GROW program has been, in my mind, tremendously successful. We've removed some significant amount of streams from the program. The only downside to the GROW program is you got to have money to get a good portion of the GROW program. For example, Sheila Township is doing a $1 million lining program. It's going to take out a significant amount of water, but you got to have $400,000 to get that $1 million program. And so Corey and I talked about that, and that might be something we want to pay attention to as an advisory committee, to try to be able to loop in those municipalities that don't have the kind of money. And I think ALCOSAN is doing that. The other thing that I'd like to mention, and I don't mean to offend anybody by this, and I would like to hear everyone's opinion. We are indirectly advising the board when we work with ALCOSAN administration. We want to avoid at every possible effort, and I deal with this with my elected officials as well, micromanaging the operation. We're not here to tell ALCOSAN how to treat effluent. We're kind of the big picture from the municipal side of things, I think. And so having these meetings and having the access that Arletta has arranged for us to all of her staff and the presentations by those staff people, that's kind of advising the board through the administration. So I don't envision a direct relationship necessarily between us, the advisory committee, and the board. I think it's better tailored through administration. But if anybody has any objection to that or other thoughts, I'd be more than welcome to hear those. So the floor is open to whomever.
Yeah, Tim, this is Lisa again. I'm sorry, I missed the last meeting. I've been having some issues with my eyes. So forgive me for if I'm bringing up something that was already talked about. I guess my concern is there's a fine line between, I think, working with the municipalities and trying to get them to understand the importance of what ALCOSAN is doing and serving as PR for ALCOSAN. And so I'm a little bit concerned about that. Is that okay? Am I really am I representing ALCOSAN in this, or am I representing the municipalities? And where is that line? And maybe somebody could point that out to me, or clarify that a little bit. Am I making myself, am I being clear myself? Is one of my questions.
You bring up a very good point. To some extent, we are going to be used by ALCOSAN for purposes of compliance with the Environmental Protection Agency's consent decree. And I think I'm okay with that personally. I think that we need to rep to the EPA that there is a channel for the municipalities to vent their issues with ALCOSAN and for us to help advise. The intent, and I think Arletta could speak to this better than me, I'm assuming that the true intent of the advisory committee is for us to advise on the big picture of things. Again, I don't ever want to sit here and tell ALCOSAN how to treat effluent. But if there is a problem with the effluent treatment, then I think we need to know about it and try to work with the board. What Corey had mentioned to me was, it's a big help. There's a benefit to all of us, the municipalities and ALCOSAN, to promote the transfer of the trunk banks. And one of those problems, and I look at Mary Ellen on this. Mary Ellen and I have been on 3 years wet weather, the Strict Committee, the Mellon Committee. One of the struggles that ALCOSAN has had, and all of us have had, is educating to the electeds. The managers are pretty much on board and pretty aware. The electeds are still out there. Now, I know there's an outreach at ALOM, and I think that's an excellent thing. ALCOSAN has hired professional public relations people. They've served fruit and coffee and drinks at a number of hotels to try to get the electeds to get to the point of, do you get the big picture? And there's been some progress in that, but education, now we're faced with, my electeds are telling me, well, how do we educate the residents when they're getting 7% increases from ALCOSAN? Someone's got to answer why that is. And I don't have the answer to that. And I think that's fodder for this advisory group. Is there some wisdom collectively that we could bring to both the education of the electeds and public outreach and education to our ratepayers?
Thank you, Tim.
No, thank you.
Kathy Sapp also wanted to address this.
I have a question, Jeannie. This is Kathy Sapp. So when we talk about educating the elected, are we on the agenda with the Local Government Academy for the upcoming November session for newly elected officials?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know if we're on the November, but we always run at least one of the classes. And we're discussing with Local Government Academy right now exactly how much will be involved in the local newly elected officials course.
Okay, because I think that's a great avenue. It's a very good start.
Kathy, you bring up a very good point. If you've ever been to the LGA's newly elected officials, and you're standing up in front of the room, and I've presented there as well, when you get to ALCOSAN and sanitary sewage, there's either like, I got to get out of this room right now, I can't take it, or I can't believe that I have to deal with, why is this my problem?
Right.
And so it's kind of entertaining to see that, but it's a good point, and it's a good place to catch them. And I know from the last presentation, I got 2 newly electeds, and they came in and said, hey, you got to tell me about this ALCOSAN thing. And so it's a good outreach. It's a very good point, Kathy.
Yeah, and I have another question. So with the LGA and reaching out to Joy Ruff, maybe that class can be held over at ALCOSAN.
That's certainly possible, Kathy. We have held the class here. Usually it's the one on water, wastewater, and we have a tour of the plant at the same time. But coincidentally, we just had a call this morning with a number of the directors saying, okay, how are we going to work this year with the LGA? We've got a great relationship with Joy and with the board there.
Okay.
And so I appreciate it, and I will certainly call on you for help if I need it.
Yes, absolutely. I'll be willing to definitely help in that area.
That's great.
There's nothing more interesting than watching basketballs jumping in the deep well.
One of the things I wanted to say, because I was concerned about this a little bit in the beginning. I mean, I thought we had a very specific purpose and why we were, formed as part of the ALCOSAN consent order and that. So I think reminders of all that is important because, we have had subjects brought up that are kind of seem to me outside of that realm.
Yep.
and I think we all need reminded what that, what our purpose is. And I think in addition to what specifically, and I don't have it in front of me, I did look it up right after maybe 2 or 3 meetings ago when a particular request came up. I thought, I don't think we're supposed to be into this part of stuff. But anyway, I think it is prudent for us to take the information back to our communities. This is so important to all of us. Through the transfer, the consent order, all of it is so critical to the whole region. I think we do have that obligation as well.
If I could jump in to Mary Ellen's point, I do have the bylaws in front of me here. I always keep them handy. The direction in section 1 is the advisory committee may advise the board on matters relative to the interim wet weather plan. And I think that goes to Mr. Rogers, a reference to big picture and transfer agreements, because we know transfer agreements are part of the modified consent decree and the wet weather plan. And then there's another provision there, section 4, in addition to recommendations on matters brought to its attention by the executive director, the advisory committee shall prepare an annual report of its activities. So that sort of gave, if there are specific requests from the board, it's to be filtered through Arletta as executive director. There's also a provision in there that Arletta or her designee, Jean, is responsible for coming up with the agendas for these meetings. So there is a bit of, I don't want to say a lane, but at least some guidance in the bylaws as to the role of the advisory committee.
Thank you, Max. And I think one of the things we can do when we meet in face in September is to have Max review that with the entire committee again, so we can do that. I mean, we are being led by administration. Jean makes the agenda, and I'm sure Arletta signs off on it before I see it. And I'm supposed to approve it, but we are being led. But I mean, we're still in a very early process here. I'm okay with that. And as chair, I just try to keep us going in a direction where we're not, I'm trying to protect us from getting too involved, but looking at the big picture stuff. And I hope that that's satisfactory to all the members.
Tim, if I could speak just a little bit more about the need to reach out to elected officials. This has been a challenge because they're very busy people. They don't think about the municipality 24/7, although maybe the managers think they should and the community thinks they should. They come from all different walks of life. It's difficult to explain, to get the right balance of information to them so that you're not overwhelming them, and at the same time you're giving them what they need, because in the long run they're the ones who have to pass the legislation and take the heat from the community if something happens. So that's why this year at ALOM on Friday, I've sent you all an email about this. We are having a luncheon for all of our municipal partners. That includes elected officials, managers, spouses, everybody. So I've talked to a number of you about that. If no one from the Governmental Affairs Division has talked to you about it, we've been working with the list that ALOM has given us of who's attending. Would love to have everybody from every ALOM authority or ALCOSAN authority municipality attend the lunch, and it's going to be great. It's going to be a plated lunch, so you don't have to stand in line. You're going to get goodies. We're going to have snappy patter, and I think it'll be pleasant but educational, because we have a number of things that it's vital for our elected officials to know about, and frankly, we're required to talk to you. So we want to be able to meet that. So if both within your communities and when you're at ALOM, if you can help beat the drum saying, hey, you going to the lunch, come on, sit with me, kind of thing, just like somebody did to all of us when we first walked into middle school and didn't know anybody. They said, come sit with me. Or they said, no, you can't sit there. But we're not going to do that. But anything you can do to help on that would be really wonderful. And, as I know I'm asking you to communicate with the municipalities a lot, but you know, I do need to rely on you. We also visit them. We also talk to them. We have municipal connections quarterly. We have emails to them all the time. I can't make people read things. I can't make people open emails. I'm doing my best, but you're a big part of the strategy to make sure that everybody is able to understand what's going on.
Jeannie, thank you. And apparently Jeannie is now part-time with the Seven Springs Catering Organization. So we appreciate that effort, Jeannie. You know, one of the things that speaks to us as an organization is this is the second month in a row where we struggled to get a quorum. And it's pretty hard for us to say that we're an advisory committee when we can't quorum the committee. And I think we need to take a look at ourselves. Now, you know, I've chalked some of that up to the COVID issues and everybody's all zoomed out. But at the same time, if you're going to take this responsibility and appointment from either the mayor or the executive, then we have to fulfill our responsibility too.
This is Lisa again. I'm sorry to be so persistent today, but because I missed the last meeting, I'm trying to catch up. So to what Jeannie was saying, I think I would really appreciate this, and I don't know about anybody else, but I noticed that a lot of folks on the advisory committee are either they're involved with government in some way. They're either municipal managers or they're council people or something like that. I am not, and so I feel like I would benefit from a workshop that really presented the best ways to reach out to, for instance, the managers or the councils or the mayors of communities, because, I mean, I have a really good relationship with the municipal managers in my basin, but I'm not all that familiar with the councils or the mayors. And so I'm not really, I feel a little bit apprehensive about reaching out to those folks. And I think I would really like to have some sort of either workshop or even a written guide, if that would help. If I'm the only one that's having problems with that, then, you don't need to have a workshop for me. But if you have something, that's written down, I would find that very beneficial.
Okay. Jeannie, we probably, to Lisa's point, we probably should offer a primer to the advisory committee members who have in the past have not been involved as deeply as some of us have. That might be a pretty good idea if we could do that.
I agree, Tim. That's a great idea. It's Kathy said.
Great.
Yeah. Yeah, Tim, you're clearly very comfortable in this landscape, and so but for some of us it's a little bit more difficult.
Good, thank you. My board calls it I could bullshit with the best of them, but let's not parse that out. But you know what? I've been involved with it for years, and that's why I'm so close to it. But if you're just getting into it now, there is a huge amount of catch up required. You're absolutely correct. Tina?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, even, if you've been in contact with elected officials and the mayors, what have you, as Jeannie said, their plates are usually pretty full. And I bring this up at, council meetings and just let them know what's happening. But not everyone is always engaged. Mm-hmm. So when you sent out the invite for the informational luncheon at ALOM, folks said, "Oh, I'm going to go to that." So mm-hmm. I think that's great. So those that have not tuned in, I think they may, tune in a little better, because it will be striking. I can come back and say, hey, we're going to see this rate increase. And I'm saying, prepare yourself, because there are some legitimate changes and this is why. But once it hits, they're going to get blowback, and to give them the talking points and clarity on how to deal with that is I think very important. And, all the whys as to why these increases are a reality. So thanks for that.
Thanks, Tina. I would encourage any member of the advisory committee who feels if you want to call me anytime, I'm more than happy to take that call and talk you through it. You know, sewage and rate increases are tough. Just a quick story. I was asked by an engineering firm to come up and talk to the economy borough when they were putting in a sewer system and they were doing foot frontages. And I was pulled over by an economy borough police officer for speeding. And he said, "Where the heck are you going to so fast?" And I said, "I'm running late for a sewer meeting. I got to do a presentation on sewers." And he said, "At Economy Borough?" "Yeah." He said, "I'm not going to give you a ticket. They're going to lynch you when you get to the meeting tonight." So, and I found out that he was right. They ran me out of the room supporting sewage. So, but if anybody ever has, wants to talk offline, please feel free to give me a call.
And what's your number?
Area code 412-486-9700.
Thank you.
Sure.
Just put it in an email, I think, Jeannie. So we'll have it.
Do that. Yeah, I'd be glad to spend time with anybody. Mary Ellen also has superior experience in this, so any one of us you want to call.
Yeah, I'm fine too. You're welcome to call me as well.
I was going to say she's less direct and abrupt than I am, but actually that's not true. So we have meetings set up. Anybody else? Any other comments? Hearing none, we have another Zoom meeting set up for July 21st. And then we'll be moving into a face-to-face meeting in September. There is no meeting in August. And Max, do you have anything for the good of the order?
No, nothing on my agenda.
Okay, Jeannie, anything else?
No, we have no public comment.
Okay. Anybody else have anything they want to say? Arletta?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, reflecting back on Lisa's original comment, not wanting to feel like or function as the public relations arm or marketing arm for ALCOSAN, I would just encourage everybody to remember, as my good friend Darla says so eloquently, we are all ALCOSAN. It's true. We don't exist in and of ourselves. If you folks aren't sending us something, we're not here. We are all in this together, as the chairman has stated. Whatever we're doing, it's a benefit to both sides of this equation. And again, we are ultimately all in this together. So hopefully we'll begin to feel more like a family as we come together in person in the fall. But prior to that, just, kind of kumbaya. And remember, we are all ALCOSAN.
Thanks, Arletta. I had no idea that Darla was a Zen master, but
completely.
Very good. Anything else from the group? Hearing nothing, I hope none of you were beat up too badly in the storm, and without objection, we are adjourned. Thank you for attending.
Thank you.